Roland Garros. Tournament director Amélie Mauresmo used live television to personally welcome Eala to the Parisian clay, and that single act has exposed just how dramatically a 20-year-old from Quezon City has forced one of sport's oldest power structures to rewrite its own rulebook. This isn't a story about tennis. This is a story about who controls the future of global sport.
Yeah, I love to have a look on everything. Security, welcoming, food, the sport, the player, scheduling. I love it with what she showed in terms of power, in terms of movement, in terms of variety, and how strong she is.
When Amélie Mauresmo took over as tournament director of Roland Garros in December 2021, she became the first female director in the history of the French Open. Mauresmo inherited a tournament that had spent decades building itself for local European audiences, a closed circuit with its center of gravity fixed firmly in Western Europe. And for years, Mauresmo operated inside that framework. In 2024, all 11 night sessions on Court Philippe Chatrier featured men's matches, every single one. Stars like Ons Jabeur and Coco Gauff publicly accused Roland Garros of, in their own words, throwing women's tennis under the bus. Mauresmo's response was to stand by the decision, citing the authenticity of men's 3-set matches for evening crowds. Then came Eala, and that's when the entire institutional logic of Roland Garros began to crack.
She works hard. Yes. That's why we like her, you know, because she's the face of the Philippines.
Just aside from her talent, she's also thinking of the future.
You know, I've only dreamed of making tennis grow in the Philippines, and now I'm bringing a whole new audience to tennis all around the world.
So when Eala plays, we all get together and we all watch her support her as a group of people.
Are there actual gatherings?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Really? Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's
We plan our dinner.
The welcome Mauresmo extended to Alexandra Eala in May 2026 was not a formality. Mauresmo personally ensured that Eala felt at home before the main draw even began, a level of direct executive involvement that Roland Garros has historically reserved for multiple-time champions or homegrown legends. Mauresmo called Eala a global superstar and a cultural phenomenon on live television. But here's what most coverage has missed entirely. That welcome came with real operational consequences that go much deeper than warm words. FFT President Gilles Moretin and high-performance director Ivan Ljubicic, two of the most powerful figures in French tennis, admitted that the tournament had specifically adjusted its scheduling philosophy to accommodate the massive wave of international fans traveling to Paris exclusively to watch Eala play. Roland Garros didn't announce this as a policy shift. There was no press release. But the admission itself is staggering. A Grand Slam tournament, one of only 4 in the world, restructured its operational framework for a player who, heading into the draw, had not yet secured a seeded position. That's not a welcome. That's an institution surrendering to market reality. But to understand why Mauresmo moved at all, you have to go back to March 2025, to a side court at the Miami Open, where a 19-year-old wildcard ranked 141st in the world walked out to face Iga Swiatek, then ranked world number 2 and a 5-time Grand Slam champion. What happened next was not supposed to be possible. Alexandra Eala broke Iga Swiatek's serve 8 times in a single match, 8 times. Analyst Coco van de Weghe, watching from the booth, said publicly that Swiatek had looked shakeable, a word that had almost never been attached to the dominant pole. And that wasn't even the first shock of the week. Before facing Swiatek, Eala had already taken down Jelena Ostapenko, the 2017 French Open champion, and Madison Keys, a US Open champion and Australian Open winner, in back-to-back rounds. A wild card, ranked 140th, no seed, no prior Grand Slam main draw experience. By the time Eala left Miami, she was inside the WTA top 100 for the first time, ranked number 75. And the tennis world started asking a question it had never seriously considered before. What happens when the most talked about player on tour isn't the highest ranked one? And this is where things shifted, because Alex Eala's rise didn't stay inside the lines of a tennis court. In December 2025, Eala traveled to Bangkok for the 33rd Southeast Asian Games. The Philippines hadn't won the women's singles gold medal at the SEA Games in 26 years. Eala won it. The final score 6-1, 6-2 over Mananchaya sa Huancayo in front of a hostile crowd. With 3 line calls, the chair umpire was forced to overrule. Historic on its own. But what followed the match is what changed everything. The president of Thailand's Tennis Federation reportedly dismissed the result by calling it just a victory by a kid from a poor country. The comment ignited outrage across Southeast Asia. Eala's response was dignified silence, focused entirely on national pride, refusing to engage in the mudslinging. And that restraint elevated her further, not despite the insult, because of how she handled it. Then, just weeks later, at a mandatory promotional event for Emirates, a senior male executive made unwelcome physical contact with the then 20-year-old Eala and suggested private meetings framed as future opportunities. Eala didn't stay quiet. Eala physically pushed the man away, spoke out loudly enough to break the entire decorum of the event, walked out, and then named the sponsor publicly on social media. The chairman of Emirates issued a rare, direct apology. The airline's market value dropped 3%. A 20-year-old athlete, mid-career with no institutional protection in that room, had just moved a global corporation's stock price by refusing to shrink.
After that, and watch her try to continue to progress, because I like her game. Obviously, she wants to get better than where she is now. She's got a lot of good hand-eye coordination and ability to take the ball early and redirect. But the fan stuff is always fun for me, because whenever you see players from smaller countries, the fans are so passionate when they get up to the top.
What happened next changed the calculation for every Grand Slam on the calendar. At the 2026 Australian Open, the tournament recorded a single-day attendance high of 101,696 spectators. The first Monday day session alone drew 68,687 fans, a record, and observers noted that the energy surrounding Eala's match on a side court was rivaling the atmosphere inside the main stadiums. Martina Navratilova said publicly that the massive Filipino audience in Melbourne should be a primary consideration for future scheduling, not a footnote. A primary consideration. The digital numbers told the same story. Eala's post-match press conference at the 2026 Australian Open pulled over 100,000 views on live streaming platforms in a single day. On that same day, press conferences from Aryna Sabalenka and Carlos Alcaraz, two of the sport's biggest names, drew fewer views. A player ranked number 42 at the time was outperforming the digital poll of the top 5. By March 16, 2026, Eala had reached a career-high ranking of world number 29. Her total career prize money had climbed to $1,882,099 by May 2026, including a $54,176 payout from a third-round run at the Italian Open. But here's the thing. Sponsors, according to available information, increasingly value Eala's influence over her raw ranking. The commercial portfolio around her, Nike, Milo, Babolat, Globe Telecom, BPI, Locally Juice, reflects something beyond standard athlete endorsement logic. Nike gifted Eala a custom hair tie designed as a Sampaguita blossom, the national flower of the Philippines, for her Wimbledon debut. Nike then released a limited edition shirt designed by artist Georgina Camus. These aren't routine brand deals. These are cultural productions built around a specific identity. And Eala isn't alone in this. Indonesia's Janice Tien, ranked 372 in the world just 12 months before February 2026, had climbed to a career high of number 36. For the first time in history, 2 Southeast Asian women were simultaneously ranked inside the WTA Top 50. Their doubles partnership, which began in Abu Dhabi in early 2026, has been described as a vehicle for regional sports diplomacy. Southeast Asia, a region of over 600 million people, is no longer a peripheral market for professional tennis. It's becoming a coherent power block, and by welcoming Eala, Roland Garros is effectively courting an entire region that the sport has historically underserved. Now here's the contradiction that Mauresmo's welcome forces into the Open. And this is the detail that changes everything. Mauresmo spent years defending a scheduling philosophy that kept women's matches off the primetime night stage. Jabeur and Gauff said it publicly. The numbers confirmed it. Every single 2024 night session went to the men's draw. Mauresmo's justification was that men's matches offered greater value for money and more authenticity for evening crowds. But now, in 2026, Eala's press conference livestream is outperforming Carlos Alcaraz's on the same day. Eala's side court match is generating atmosphere that rivals the main stadiums. The entire premise that women's tennis couldn't generate the same demand as men's tennis has been statistically dismantled, and not by a top 5 player, by a 20-year-old still fighting for a seeded position. Mauresmo's major welcome is the institutional acknowledgement that the old justification no longer holds. The reality is, Mauresmo isn't welcoming Eala purely out of admiration. Mauresmo is welcoming Eala because Eala has given her the data she needed to change Roland Garros's own policies. The global superstar label isn't just validation, it's cover for a pivot the tournament needed to make. Heading into the 2026 Roland Garros main draw, Eala's live ranking sits at number 37, just outside the top 32 seeding threshold. She needs at least 5 or 6 players ranked above her to withdraw before the final draw is confirmed. Emma Raducanu, Amanda Anisimova, and Victoria Mboko are all reportedly dealing with injury or illness. Eala's new doubles partnership with Mboko, framed by tournament organizers as a glimpse into the future of world tennis, may face complications before a single ball is struck. Rafael Nadal personally chose Eala as his hitting partner for his first session back after retirement. The Rafa Nadal Academy, where Eala has trained since the age of 13, is built around what they call an ethos of suffering, the belief that an athlete has to learn to embrace discomfort as a prerequisite for winning. Eala has broken Swiatek's serve 8 times in one match. Eala has moved a global airline stock price. Eala ended a 26-year national drought on a hostile court in Bangkok. But her serve, flagged by Greg Rusedski, Andrea Petkovic, and Martina Navratilova as her most significant technical vulnerability, still lacks the pace and variation needed to dominate at the very highest level, particularly against power hitters like Elena Rybakina. The 2026 season, by all accounts, is a building year specifically aimed at fixing that. Roland Garros has already adjusted its scheduling. It has restructured its operational framework. It has produced a live television welcome for a 20-year-old from Quezon City. The institution has moved, so the question no one inside that tournament can answer yet is this. If Eala enters Roland Garros unseeded, if the draw doesn't fall in her favor, will the atmosphere she generates on the outside courts be enough to force the institution to give her the primetime stage it spent years denying to the players who came before her? Or will Mauresmo's welcome turn out to be the ceiling rather than the door?